Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Welcome back to Live from the Heartland, all you citizens of the world. This is for the week of September 12th, and we're recording it a couple of days early. And it really gives me a lot of pleasure right now to bring on a young poet, now an author, someone I've known since he was a kid. I have a nice picture of him and his family when they visited the Heartland Cafe when he was just a little tyke. I've known his folks, Scott Chambers and his late great mother, Marilyn Katz, for a long time. Marilyn and I go back to 1966, and I still miss her to this day. Grady now is the author of the novel Great Disasters, forthcoming from Tin House this month. And he also is the author of a poetry collection, North American Stadiums by Milkweed, and he is the winner of the Max Revo Poetry Prize. And he's done a lot of writing. He's appeared in the Atlantic, the Paris Review, Plowshares, American Poetry Review, a number of others, and my favorite, The Sun. So good day to you, Grady Chambers.
Good day to you, Michael. It's great to be here.
It's good to have you. And how is the weather out there in Philadelphia in a not so much of a blue state? It's a little mixed bag over there.
Well, the
Philadelphia is good.
Yeah, Philadelphia is good, and the weather in the sky today is perfect for me. It's overcast and cloudy and cold, so it means fall is imminent and football is on television. So I couldn't be happier.
Well, Chicago looked beautiful in the Monday Night Football, but the result was not so good.
Devastating.
Are you a Bears fan still, or are you now an Eagles fan?
I am still a Bears fan. I was, wearing my tie-dyed Chicago Bears shirt for the duration of that game. Not the outcome I was hoping for, but
it was a rough one. All right, so you got this new book out, and I read it I don't usually read everything that I'm going to talk to someone about, but I read every bit of this, and it really had me, it gripped me. So tell us a little bit about your new book, and tell us, start out telling us what it's all about.
I sure will. So Great Disasters is a novel. It's set largely in Chicago against the backdrop of the attacks of September 11th, the start of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the protests against them. The book centers around 6 friends who are sort of coming of age in that context. And it follows them from high school into adulthood as one of the characters joins the Marines. The other characters, go in different directions. Some of them joining the protests. The story sort of follows them into adulthood as each of them reckons with a changing relationship to one another and to their shared past.
How did you choose this topic, and how did you pull it all together? And I may as well ask you right now, what was the hardest part?
Sure. Well, on a sort of practical level of how the book came to be, I had actually forgotten this, but in preparing for this interview, I remembered that the novel sort of emerged from a short story that I was at work on, back in sort of 2017 or 2018. And that story, the action of that story sort of largely took place on the day of the Gay Pride Parade in Chicago. And the narrator of the story is sort of at the parade and sort of partying with his friend. And it sort of it sort of goes back and forth between the action of the parade and the narrator remembering a friend who he grew up with, who went on to join the military, and sort of the narrator spends the story sort of thinking about the different directions that his life went in relation to his friend. And I had such a hard time sort of wrangling that story into a short enough form that it could be considered a short story. So by the time I got a finished draft of it, I was just kept thinking about it, and I was like, maybe in order to fully tell this story, it's worth returning to and just sort of continue writing into it until you feel that the whole story has been told. So that was sort of how the novel got started. And then sort of thematically, like the characters in the book, I came of age in Chicago in the same sort of time period that the book is set. I was in 8th grade when the attacks of September 11th occurred. So my own personal timeline kind of follows, shares a timeline with the characters in the book. That was a truly crazy 10-year period between the attacks of 9/11, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, everything that was going on domestically with, the rise of sort of the surveillance state. And then, towards the end of it, President Obama gets elected and then the economy crashes. So as I've sort of gotten older and have had more distance from that time period, it's just, I just sort of kept thinking about what it was like to sort of grow up in that context. And I studied political science, and I'm the son of sort of two progressives who were, very much, as involved in the anti-war movement in those years. And and I've just, as I get older, have thought a lot about like what a strange time in our country that was, and also how strange it was to sort of be coming of age in that context, and through political science as my area of study, kind of being asked to study and try and make sense of a kind of chaos that I was in the middle of. And so it felt like something that I wanted to return to in fiction. And now that I have some sort of distance from that period.
Well, you do say in the beginning of the book somewhere I saw that this is a work of fiction, but how close to reality is it? And tell us a little bit more about these 6 pals that are featured throughout the book.
Sure. What I would say is that there are some key situational events in the book that are definitely true to life. And the narrator of the book, Graham, has some, for people who know me, will see some sort of clear biographical overlap with my own life. But basically, there are stories that are in the book, particularly from the characters' time in high school, that are sort of more or less true to life. And I decided to put them in because they sort of serve the story that I was telling. And then there is sort of I sort of use real life things as the kind of building blocks for the book, and invented from there. So as readers of the book will come to find out, the sort of the narrator spends a lot of time in the book thinking about a relationship between the narrator's friend Ryan and this character Jana, and there's sort of a pivotal event that happens that as the narrator gets older, looking back on that event, he believes that it sort of fundamentally altered the course of the lives, particularly of his friend Ryan, who goes on to join the Marines. And that is total invention. I mean, there is no real life Jana. There's this event that is kind of the pivotal moment of the book is something that never occurred. So I took things from my own life that served the story that I was trying to tell, but departed from factual events, enormously.
I'm wondering if there's any of the stuff that's written in the book is kind of exposing reality to some of your pals that are also inspiration for the book.
I think it may. I think people who know me will be inclined to read this as, I think we'll have a natural inclination to say, the character and thoughts of Graham is a direct parallel to Grady. And I would fundamentally reject that. I mean, I think the character of Graham, who's the narrator of the book, is somebody who is defined by uncertainty, and to some extent insecurity. Uncertainty about himself, uncertainty about the past, uncertainty of what to make of the past. And those things are not true to myself at all. In creating the character of Graham, I actually sort of wanted him to be kind of a Holden Caulfield-like narrator. He's got, a very youthful voice, and doesn't have a lot of self-awareness, particularly as a young person, maybe more as he moves into his older years. But I wanted to create a narrator who readers of the book might feel that they know more about this person than this person knows about himself. And all of that was, to serve the story that I was trying to tell. So while when convenient, I've given that narrator, thoughts and opinions that I may have in my own life or have thought about, but the book, the book in places is sort of a vehicle to think through some of these things, and some of them I've spent time thinking about in my own life.
One of the themes in the book is the consumption of alcohol, and there was not much weed in it. Once in a while, I'd go out, and I'm just talk a little bit about alcohol from the author's view and the character's view. I think back to my own. I remembered a few times getting really blasted in my own youth, making me never drink gin again or Ripple. And I just, for me, there was no weed in high school. Then there was a little bit of weed in the early 62 on for me. But in this, I was just kind of a little overwhelmed by the amount of drinking that goes on in the book. And I think you said you maybe enhanced that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think drinking entered into the book because because in my own life, drinking entered my life quite early. So in trying to write about the portion of the book that took place in high school, that is sort of a parallel between my own life and the lives of my friends and the characters in the book, in that drinking was something we spent a lot of time doing on high school weekends. And when I as I was working on the book and saw how much of a feature of that. How much of a feature of the book that drinking was, I sort of thought, okay, this is something that can be useful as something that sort of goes on to play a role in the lives of these characters as they get older. And what I would say is that basically, while certainly that is true to my own life, to create an interesting story, to create tension, to create fictional drama, I basically just turn the dial up to 11 on the drinking. So yeah, it definitely has roots in real life experience, but I think is presented in a exaggerated way because it was useful for the story and the things that go on to happen.
There's some really dramatic moments, and there's the gun incident, and then the character Sam and a fire where she's unconscious, and the gun is someone brings a gun to school. But then there were also some warm and funny moments. Warm moment was when their character Graham is a little disappointed that none of his older friends want to drink and party when you're all getting together out on Long Island toward the end of the book. And the people that he had been a little critical of in a discussion the night before, they meet him in the morning and invite him to be the godfather of their coming child. And that really, it did touch me. And then there's a part where Ryan and a guy at the VA are trying to get free a bird that's caught in the hallway. And I won't go into detail on leading up to that, but the guy comes over. Graham thinks there's something going to not Graham, but Ryan thinks something is going to happen. The guy asks him to help get the bird out. And then they get the bird trapped and they're walking out, and you use the term like holding a dog that's already pissing. And that just cracked me up.
I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, I mean, the first moment that you mentioned, in which the narrator sort of is asked to be the godfather to his friend's sort of forthcoming child, that was to arrive at that moment was actually a total surprise to me. In the wake, as Michael alluded to, there's a sort of dinner party scene in which the narrator of the book drinks too much, kind of, inadvertently says something kind of sharp towards his dear friends, and goes to sleep that night sort of filled with regret. And in the wake of that happening, I was like, how is this going to be resolved? What might happen next? And it occurred to me to rather than have this be a real site of conflict, to actually have this be a moment in which two characters in the book extend this, this really a kind of generosity of that I would call grace to the narrator. And that is grace is something that I think a lot about. And I saw an opportunity to bring it into the story in this way. So that was sort of an exciting arrival. And the scene with, so the scene that Michael's describing, to listeners who will not have read the book, in the wake of the sort of disastrous U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021, Ryan, who's a former Marine and is now back in the States, he's really angry. He drives to the VA, and in an earlier draft of the book, I had actually made the grave mistake, I now think, of having Ryan drive to the VA with a gun. And the more I thought about it, I was like, this is a well-used trope of the sort of irate veteran who goes and commits an act of violence. So I was like, I want something else to happen here. And somebody once told me that the best way to turn an enemy into a friend is to ask them for help. So I was thinking about that in writing that scene. This person comes out from the VA and approaches Ryan's car, and Ryan thinks he's going to tell him to get out of there or ask him what he's doing there. But instead, the man asks him, "Can you help me, free this bird that is trapped inside?" And maybe another moment of grace in the book.
It was really nice.
Thank you.
A couple of themes, and when you're all running into the water, you're worrying about what might happen to them rather than enjoying the moment, you or the character. And you express throughout the book kind of a rich inner life versus sadness, and then the life you've received rather than the life you chose. Can you address any of those?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about that last point of this sort of this theme that is in the book. The narrator sort of thinks, in looking at his own life and the life of his friends, is thinking about, to what extent has he forged a life for himself of his own volition versus how much of his life is following in the path of expectations that were set by his parents, and he thinks about that in the lives of his friends as well. And that is that's something that I wanted to come into the book, because it's something that I think about in life across a variety of different sites. I mean, certainly religion is one, whereby, I think people, most people I know who had a religious upbringing, they sort of accept their faith by default, because that's the sort of faith that they were raised in, but most of them don't actually have an active practice of faith. They just sort of say, well, I was raised in the church, so I suppose I'm Christian, but I've never really considered what that means or thought about, what that means in their own life. And, the book focuses on a group of friends who are quite privileged. They all are sort of middle upper class folks. And I think that sort of that's a tension that I wanted the book to explore, is people living lives as they get older that exceed to their parents' expectations versus people living lives that depart wildly from the sort of norms of their class or those around them.
One of the things that you kind of go back and forth between a memory and the action of the moment, and you use films a lot in remembering things. And I remember a film I saw, and you don't list the films except for The Fog of War, but you have them all listed in the appendix. And I know that our engineer Hal is a big film fan. I have not seen any of those films. The only one you actually mention in the book is Fog of War. You want to just talk a moment on film?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, well, I will say just personally, movie going, going to see a movie in theaters is one of the great pleasures of my life. I do it as often as I can. I remember during the pandemic when, that was sort of a treat that I allowed myself, would be when the movie theaters opened back up, even though it was kind of frowned upon. I would go see movies whenever I could, because I missed that so much. And it's just such a pleasure to sit in a darkened theater. I had not planned to bring movies into this book in the way that I did. What happened was, I think somewhere early on in the writing, the narrator, that I was just working on it, and I had the narrator sort of say, like, this reminds me, this made me think of a movie I saw in which a character does X, Y, and Z. And it sort of caught my attention, and I was like, this could be a repeated thing in the book, sort of almost a verbal tick on the part of the narrator, that can actually come to be a defining quality of the narrator. He's somebody who, so once my ear sort of perked up at that tendency of his to be like, this reminds me of a movie, I decided I would try and do that as often as I could, because I think it served ultimately to characterize this person, who is somebody who sort of, he makes sense of the world by likening the world to films. Like, his own experience is kind of becomes refracted through movies that he has seen. And I think that comes to be an important aspect of who he is as a character and a person.
Well, Grady Chambers, it was a great read, and it's really, I'm really proud of you being an older guy who knows you. Great Disasters is the book, and it's getting released this month from Tin House Press. And I want all the people here in Chicago, the great blue state or town in the great blue state of Illinois, that you are going to have a reading on Saturday, October 4th, at Volumes Book Cafe, and that is at 1373 North Milwaukee Avenue here in Chicago.
6:30 p.m. Saturday, October 4th. All are welcome. It'll be a fun celebration, and if you're able to, I'd love you to come out, and look forward to saying hello.
And we'll see you there.